Now, The Who have just announced the release of a deluxe multi-format box set called Who's Next and Lifehouse. And Lifehouse was intended as a follow-up to The Who's hugely successful rock opera Tommy. The futuristic story was created by my guest Pete Townshend, and in it he describes an interconnected world where every person is linked to a computer, predicting the world of social media that we have today. Unfortunately, though, the project was abandoned and the songs were used to create their 1971 album Who's Next. A new box set called Who's Next Lifehouse has just been released. It collates the released album Who's Next with previously unreleased tracks of demos, live sections and complete concerts. I'll be having a chat with Pete Townshend about it after this Who classic. Pete Townshend, a very good afternoon. How are you?
I'm extremely well.
Now, many congratulations on this incredible box set, Who's Next Lifehouse. It really is amazing. 155 tracks, 89 previously unreleased. What a labour of love that must have been.
It has been, and it's been, I won't say it's been a joy, but for me, part of it has been a joy, has been the fact that the graphic novel based on the original script that I did for the Lifehouse project back in 1971, has come to fruition around the same time. So it's included, and I think it helps. For those fans who've been confused about what Lifehouse was about, they call it dystopian, which means unhappy, I suppose, but a picture of the future. And what's interesting is we're sort of in that future now. A lot of the things that I saw coming have arrived and, in fact, overtaken us.
It was an uncannily accurate glimpse into the future. How do you come up with that? Do you have to find a quiet space and you just kind of let your mind wander a bit and see what comes up? Or
you know, my creative process is a mixture of things. I was a young kid who thought he would go to art school and maybe have music as a hobby. And when I landed at art school, I landed in a really radical art school course with a guy called Roy Ascott, who's only 10 years older than me, but he was a bit of a mind bender. He was the one that foresaw so much of the technological advances that we see today. And he had a couple of people working with him, Harold Cohen and some other far-seeing lecturers at the college. In fact, Brian Eno did a very similar course. So in a sense, we both had our minds bent by this guy. And so when The Who started, I was intending to go back to art college. And by about 1970, post-Tommy, I was looking for a big project that would replace it. And one of the things that popped up was the idea to go back to look at what I'd learned at art college about the possibility of computers coming, of virtual reality coming. And I was at art college in 1961, by the way, so that those guys that were teaching me then were very far-seeing. So I looked around, looked at The Who's audience, looked at what we were trying to achieve, you know, spiritually and congregationally and blah, 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 and that's how it all came about.
Just before we talk more about it, could you possibly choose a track from the box set?
You know, I've got it in front of me. There's so much stuff here.
Yes.
You know, would it be cheeky? I'm really proud of my demos, and they're very different to The Who recordings. They're gentler and sort of kinder in a way. I'd like to choose a song called Mary. It's about the teenage heroine in the story.
That's Mary, a demo version of a track included on the box set Who's Next Lifehouse. Pete Townshend is with us on the line. Now, you mentioned this accurate glimpse into the future, so the world had become a pretty awful place with pollution and people were ordered to stay at home. And to keep the population pacified and quiet, they came up with the idea of the grid, which is a forerunner of the internet.
In a sense, yes. It was more like a forerunner of a mixture of virtual reality and Netflix. It was a complete lifestyle substitution. The idea that not so much to subjugate the population, but to keep them safe. That was the original plan, was to give them these specially made, almost like spacesuits, in which they would sit, lay, sleep, and get up occasionally to do a bit of exercise, but they would be entertained. And what actually started to happen was that the speed at which the occupants consumed the programs that were being delivered to them started to get faster and faster and faster. And the outcome was that they started to advance spiritually much quicker than they would had they been living normal lives. And the government started to get frightened about that and decided to first make a kind of a spectacle out of it, but secondly to keep people in their experience suits, is what I called them, experience suits, for as long as possible. The one difference between my vision and reality, of course, is that this is all wireless. In my vision, it was all down tubes and wires. So people were fed down tubes. Their waste products were taken away by tubes. There were wires to send them their lifetimes, which was like done, via computers, of course. But there was I didn't have any sense at all that Wi-Fi was coming.
What's the future for The Who, Pete?
We don't know. We've just finished a European tour, which went really well. I'm happy to be able to say that I'm starting to enjoy it. I've never really much enjoyed performing. It's not been a central part of what I do. I really much prefer to be in the studio, but, performing is a necessary part of what I do. But I think this last tour of the UK and 4 shows in Europe was just lovely. And Roger's singing great, and I've been playing well, finding new ways to invent. So Roger and I will probably go and have lunch and talk about what we might do next. I think, we've ignored the rest of the world for quite a long time. We haven't played in Europe very much. We haven't played in South America or Mexico. We haven't played in Australia, New Zealand or Japan for a long time. But, we're a little bit older even than Elton John, and I wouldn't like to take on, a final tour with everything that entails. Also, we did have a final tour when I left The Who in 1982. I didn't come back to them for 11 years. So we had our last tour and we're often chided for coming back.
By the way, where did that obelisk come from? Did it exist or did you put it there for the photo shoot?
Oh, God. If somebody had actually proposed that idea to me, people like it. I don't know why I hate it. I hate that. At the time, we were just recovering from that movie, that Stanley Kubrick movie, 2001. And in it, at the end, there's an obelisk that is throbbing away, and it's just apparently of some kind of automated consciousness that has come to take over the planet. What it is a stabilizer in a coal slack heap. The stuff on the cover is a load of coal slack, and these great big concrete pillars were meant to hold it in place. And we were driving. We'd done a couple of photos for the cover with the photographer Ethan Russell. We didn't feel we had the album. And somebody said, "Oh, I want a wee," and got out, and we all decided to go and have a wee, and Ethan took the photo. And then it became our cover, and I was just thinking, what the hell are we doing? Putting this fabulous project that I've got, and here we are peeing up an obelisk. But there you go.
Pete, congratulations on the box set. It's a tour de force, it really is, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. All the very best to you.
Oh, thanks, Johnny. It's so lovely to work with you after all these years.
Brilliant. The Who, one of their finest, won't get fooled again. And thanks to Pete Townshend, a reminder that the Who deluxe multi-format release box set is called Who's Next and Lifehouse, and it's out now.